How do sobriety checkpoints work in California? Are they even legal? If you're watching this video, chances are you've been arrested at a sobriety checkpoint. You're facing DUI charges here in California. Stick around. I think you're going to like this video. My name is Dod. I've been a criminal defense attorney here in San Diego County since 2004. My firm is Dod Law. We have an office in downtown San Diego. We're also located up in the North County in Vista, right across from the Vista courthouse. Now, I get the question all the time when I get a client that calls after being arrested at a sobriety checkpoint. And the main thing everybody always asks me is, how is a sobriety checkpoint even legal? Why do the police have the right to put a sobriety checkpoint out? Isn't that a violation of my Fourth Amendment right? And those are all great questions. And unfortunately, the answer is sobriety checkpoints in the state of California are legal. In fact, they are legal in the majority of states here in our country. There are only a handful of states that sobriety checkpoints are not legal. The Supreme Court has held that sobriety checkpoints are legal. So in a landmark Supreme Court decision, what the Supreme Court said is this: the government has a compelling interest in protecting its public, and the minimal intrusiveness it has on the driver. The government's right to protect the public, that substantially outweighs the driver's right at the sobriety checkpoint. What does that mean in legal terms? What that basically means is you driving through a sobriety checkpoint is so minimally intrusive that the government has the right to protect the public over your being stopped at a sobriety checkpoint. So your 2 to 3 minute stop at a sobriety checkpoint is deemed to be valid because the government is trying to protect the public against death and against DUI drivers. That's why it's legal, because that substantially outweighs the fact that you have to stop at a sobriety checkpoint for 1 to 2 minutes. They're protecting the public, okay? So it's an administrative stop. It's just like when you go to the airport and you go through TSA screening and they check you and they go through your bags and they do all that. It's the same type of thing. So now the question becomes, well, you went through a sobriety checkpoint, you were arrested. Well, now you want to know, hey, Dod, what are my rights at a sobriety checkpoint here in California? Now, your rights at a sobriety checkpoint are basically the same rights you have during any police contact, right? So you go through the sobriety checkpoint. Now, the next question I always get is, can I, make a U-turn and try to get myself out of the sobriety checkpoint? And the answer is this: you can avoid a sobriety checkpoint if and only if you're not violating any traffic law. You're not committing any traffic infraction. So the common hypothetical is you're driving and you're about to get on the freeway and you notice that there's a sobriety checkpoint. And what do? You just make an illegal U-turn in the middle of the street. Police see you, they light you up, you're arrested, okay? Now, what if you see a sobriety checkpoint, you notice it's coming from a few blocks away, and you see a street and you make a lawful right turn and you take off? And the answer is that's completely lawful. You did not commit any traffic violation, right? So if you commit a traffic violation, they can pull you over. If you can lawfully get out of the sobriety checkpoint without committing a traffic infraction, then yeah, it's your absolute right to do so. Now, you've come up to the sobriety checkpoint and here you are, okay? The police have come up to you, and you've been drinking. And everyone says, well, what do I do at a sobriety checkpoint? It's the exact same thing you do on any police contact. You don't make any statements, okay? You do not talk. You never talk to the police. So always remember this, whether it's a sobriety checkpoint or whatever it is, you do not talk to the police at any sobriety checkpoint. They're going to ask you for your license, registration, your insurance. Are you legally required to do it? Yes. You are legally required to give them your license, your registration, and your insurance. You do not have to talk. Next thing they might ask you, please step out of the vehicle. We want you to do field sobriety test. And what are you going to tell them? You're going to tell them that you do not want to do field sobriety test. In fact, under California law, you do not have to lawfully consent to a field sobriety test. So remember that. You do not talk. You do not take any field sobriety test. You must provide your license, registration, and insurance. Now, the next thing they're going to ask you is, do you want to do a breath or blood test? Now, it gets a little tricky at a sobriety checkpoint because if you're pulled over on the side of the street, you have the right to refuse a preliminary alcohol screening test. It's called the PAS device. Now, when it's not a sobriety checkpoint and you're just pulled over, you can refuse that preliminary alcohol screening test, okay, until you go to the station. However, sobriety checkpoints are different because they have little areas set up where they take you and they can either do a blood draw or they can do the actual intoxilizer breath test. So yes, you are legally required to take a blood test or the intoxilizer breath test. And everyone says, well, why? And the answer is because of California's implied consent law. You are required to do a blood or breath test, whether it's a sobriety checkpoint or anywhere you are required to do so. So to summarize, are sobriety checkpoints legal? Yes. Number two, what should you do at a sobriety checkpoint? Don't talk. Don't make any statements. Provide your license, registration, and insurance. If they ask you to do field sobriety tests, remember, you do not have to do field sobriety tests, whether it's at a sobriety checkpoint or whether you're on the side of the road. And listen, I have another video on sobriety checkpoints, on field sobriety tests. You can watch that. I think field sobriety tests are designed for you to fail. You should never do field sobriety tests. And really, at the end of the day, you should never drink and drive. Now, I get it. You can have 1 or 2 beers and drive. But if you're going to go out and you're going to be the designated driver, just don't drink. Okay? You never have to put yourself in this situation because, for some of you, it takes 3 beers and you're going to be over a .08 and you can get a DUI. Okay? So don't talk. Don't do field sobriety tests. When they ask you to do a blood or breath test, you will have to do one. And the reason is this: California's implied consent law. If you don't do it, it's a refusal. They will get a warrant. They will have a phlebotomist take it from you even though you don't want to do it. And the problem is at that point, your license is now suspended for 1 whole year. And everyone says, well, Dod, how do I get to work if my license is suspended for 1 year because I refused to do a blood or breath test? And my answer is, unfortunately, if the officer told you and they read you the admonition that your license would be suspended for 1 year if you failed to do a blood or breath test, then you have no restrictions. You can't even go to work. You can't even put an ignition interlock device on your car and drive. Your license is automatically suspended for a year. On the criminal portion of it, you're also facing a couple days in jail. On the DMV, you're facing 1 year of a license suspension. So it's very important that you do not refuse a breath test or a blood test while you're at the sobriety checkpoints. And they can also hit you with other charges as well. Many times, not only do you refuse the test, they hit you with a resisting arrest. Sometimes they even hit you with a felony resisting arrest, depending on what the facts are. I hope this helps. Remember, sobriety checkpoints are lawful here in California. Certain states, they are not lawful. Hit that like button, subscribe to my channel, hit the notification bell so you can get notifications every time I put out a video. My name is Dod. If you have any questions, call us 619-814-5110. Visit my website, www.dodlaw.com. Have a great day.